You mean 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. Uh, When we last left off, anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator, Legislative Secretary Amanda Shelton, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank all of our colleagues here today who added amendments and who added to the discussion to strengthen this bill. I'd also like to thank our partners who helped us drafting this legislation and who supported this legislation, the Micronesia Climate Alliance, MISA Guam, the Guam Power Authority, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, the Guam Youth Congress, the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability, the Guam Energy Office, and all young people on our island, those who were striking for climate change, as well as other partners such as Guam Sustainable Culture. I know that this is an important bill for so many of us who love Guam and only want to see what is the best for our future. So today I am really excited about all of this discussion and what this bill will mean for our future. And the goal here is really, as we've talked about, twofold: to protect our environment and to protect our pocketbooks. And I think that we're moving boldly here and initiating this long-term goal, and that's the key to a more resilient and a more sustainable future for Guam. In a recent article in The Economist, it said that climate change, number one, is not just an environmental problem that we hope that some scientist in a lab somewhere is going to solve. It's a matter for all of our government leaders to address. And number two, climate change is not just a problem that we can put off for another decade. Any delay in addressing this issue means that mankind will suffer more. This means the possibility of more super typhoons coming through our region. So the time to act is now. And so I want to thank all of our colleagues in advance for their support of this bill and everyone who was a part of this. Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker.
On the motion to place.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, and just a motion to add some co-sponsors to the piece. I'd like to add Senator Regine Bisco-Lee, you, Speaker Tina Rose Munya-Barnes, Senator Sabina Flores-Perez, Senator Teresa M. Terlahi, Senator Will Castro, and Senator Pito Terlahi, and Vice Speaker Talina Nelson.
On that motion, are there any objections?
I'm sorry, and can I also add Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano?
On that motion, all inclusive, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to move this bill to the voting file, Bill number 80.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Senator Amanda, Legislative Secretary, I will acknowledge you again.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, I'd also like to move to set Bill number 13-35 aside as I continue to work with the Attorney General for some technical fixes as well as our legal bureau. I will save it for the next session.
On that motion, without any objections? No objections? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Legislative Secretary, on Bill 86 to just pass. Waiting for information for me, if you can, please.
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move to go back to motions.
To pass on 86.
I'm sorry. I'd like to move to pass
On my behalf.
on Bill number 86-35,
COR.
COR,
Waiting for more information.
as we are waiting for more information for this bill.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Senator, Legislative Secretary, I will recognize you again.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move that we go back to motions.
Notwithstanding
the House rules, I move that we go back to motions.
on that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Please
Sejus Masi,
proceed.
Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move to place Bill number 138-35 COR, an act to amend Section 9013 of Chapter 90, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to expanding the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 to define and prohibit the use of electronic smoking devices wherever other tobacco products are already prohibited, onto the session agenda.
And Legislative Secretary, is that as introduced?
It is as introduced.
On that motion, are there any objections? Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries.
Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move that Bill number 138-35 COR be moved to the third reading file for discussion.
Legislative Secretary, can you please move us back to the second reading first?
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I move that notwithstanding the House rules, we move back to the second reading file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries.
Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker, and
Legislative Secretary, I'll recognize you again. Please
Okay.
proceed.
thank you very much. I move to
Please.
place Bill number 138-35 COR into the third reading file for discussion.
And if you can, please, Madam Speaker, just for procedure's sake, the bill number as introduced.
Yes, Bill number
And title.
138-35 COR as introduced, an act to amend Section 9013 of Chapter 90, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to expanding the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 to define and prohibit the use of electronic smoking devices wherever other tobacco products are already prohibited. Moved into the third reading file for discussion.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank all of our colleagues and you, Madam Speaker, for signing on as a co-sponsor to this legislation, which many who came out to testify and submitted testimony, written testimony, called common sense legislation. This is, as we discussed in the public hearing, this bill, Bill number 138-35, will amend the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 to include the use of electronic smoking devices. There are currently no laws on Guam to prohibit the use of these devices in public places. I want to thank also the Committee on Health for their work to report this bill out. And just to give a little bit of background, as we started this term, we had many individuals coming to the office and sharing with us from different coalitions that people were very offended by the use of some vaping and e-cigarette devices in places where tobacco products were already banned. And so we heard of a story that in an indoor children's play area in one of our local malls, that there was an incident where a parent was smoking from an e-cigarette device and refused to stop because there was no law banning vaping indoors. So Bill 138-35 seeks to codify this common sense and common decency legislation. And I want to say thank you to all of the vapors and those who use e-cigarettes, those who are, most of them who are very courteous and acknowledge that the effect of their aerosol may have on other people. But today, this is just something that we want to put into law to ensure that we're protecting those who might have some respiratory issues, who do not have the ability to go out and enjoy clean, fresh air the way that all of us are so fortunate to do. And as I shared in the public hearing and throughout discussions on this bill, the Natasha Protection Act was first introduced by our then Senator Lulian Guerrero in 2005, and the public law is named after Natasha Perez. Natasha was my best friend, and at the age of 14, she suffered from osteosarcoma, which is a rare form of cancer. She couldn't go anywhere in public where people might be smoking, as the smoke could further compromise her health. Natasha's mother, who testified in the hearing, shared a little bit about Natasha's struggle, and today I think this is, a great a day to mention her as well as we discuss this bill, as this will also carry on Natasha's legacy, because she herself suffered from cancer and couldn't go out to places where smoke might compromise her health, but she also advocated for others who might have been in the same situation. I watched her struggle for clean air, and no one should have to worry about where their next breath is coming from, or whether or not that next breath will be compromised while they're out enjoying an evening with their family at a mall or at a restaurant, or trying to go to the movies. So some may argue that vaping is a civil rights issue, but your right to vape or someone's right to vape should stop where another person's lungs begin, or where that person will begin to breathe. So again, I want to thank all of our colleagues, all 15 of us who have co-sponsored this piece of legislation in advance for their support. Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Legislative Secretary Shelton. On the main motion, on the question, anybody wishes to speak? If not, would you like to put it on the Senator Therese? You are recognized at this time.
I'd just like to speak very briefly on this and to commend the author and stand in support of the bill. I also want to commend the Public Health, Department of Public Health and Social Services, and the Guam Tobacco Coalition, because they have been very active and very successful and Guam has actually even been awarded by the World Health Organization for its tobacco control measures and its actions that is taken. It's coordinated with the government and nonprofits. So I want to congratulate them on all their work. And I just want to state again for the record that this bill only really reinforces that Natasha Protection Act, which bans smoking where everyone else will be affected, in entrances to public buildings, in bars and restaurants, and it doesn't at all affect your right to vape, but it affects just the location of where this is going to occur, and this is for the safety of all others. So I want to, again, stand in support of the bill. Sizus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Buen provecho, Senator Terlai. Senator Bisco-Lee, you are recognized.
Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker. I would like to rise in support of this measure, as we are all co-sponsors of this bill. But I'd just like to point out that the public hearing on this bill was so moving. It was really amazing to see all of the different stakeholders come out in support of this measure. As a previous speaker had mentioned, the Guam Tobacco Coalition, stakeholders like American Cancer Society and Guam Cancer Care, just the tremendous work that our community has done to really try to educate not just the people of Guam, but also us here in this body as to the dangers, especially to our most vulnerable, to our young people, our manamku, those of us who have respiratory ailments. And so I think it's really important, and I certainly commend the author of this bill. I think that it will go a long way to expanding and extending Natasha's legacy, and I certainly want to thank the author of this bill, but also Natasha's family. Sidious Masi.
Buen provecho, Senator Lee. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator San Augustine, I will recognize you at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this bill. It's actually a good bill. As I look at my colleagues here, I'm the only smoker here. And I say, vapors, join the crowd. Come to my corner and let's enjoy our smokes. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Legislative Secretary Shelton, you are recognized for the closing.
Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to again thank all of our colleagues for their support. As was restated here tonight, we're not trying to stomp on anybody's rights to to vape, but just to make it clear where they are allowed to vape, just as smoking tobacco products is regulated. And this bill really seeks to, you know, drive home the point that we want to prevent further exposure to any kind of secondhand smoke or secondhand aerosols, because we know it's been clear over the last few weeks, even in our nationwide media, that these e-cigarettes, these vape products and juices are not free from risk. There are different risks to all of these things, and while the studies are still being done and this research is being developed, we want to take action now to, as one of our colleagues said, protect our most vulnerable so that we can all enjoy our time out in public. Just last week, I celebrated Natasha's 29th birthday with her family, and we went to visit her in the cemetery. We enjoyed a nice meal. We talked a lot about the memories that we shared together. And she can't be here to see this or to continue to advocate for clean air for all of our people. And so I'm very honored, I'm very humbled to be here to continue doing this in her honor. Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker.
So move, Secretary.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Madam Speaker. I'd also like to move to place Bill number 138-35 COR as introduced into the voting file.
On that motion, any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. I'm just going to take a moment's recess to to converse with legal and the clerk. Emina 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. I'm going to acknowledge the Vice Speaker at this time. Vice Speaker, Majority Leader Nelson, you are recognized.
Situs Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that we recess till tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Thank you.
On that motion, we are in recess to 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. Good night, colleagues.